What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast powered by Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. It is draft day, the first round. Won't have to wait very long to hear a Cane get picked. It'll be the first name off the board at Cam Moore. It's been a while. We could say that. I was just a little kid. First time we could say that. The last time we could say that. So this, for a lot of us, this is the first time we can remember watching the draft and seeing the number one pick off the board, wearing that orange and green. So excited about that. Also, Nikar has come back to Miami. He was testing the market, jumped in the portal, and has announced he's coming back to the Canes. I think that's going to be a nice young player to develop and a good development overall for depth purposes and just for upside. We'll talk about that. Pete's got the latest scoop from the scouting community. It's Take Your Child to Work Day. So I got my son Joaquin over here. Hi. Saying what's up. Got my son Eli over here. So yeah, we were going to be in the studio recording, but the power kind of screwed up. So we're doing this at home. So they're seeing this work from home lifestyle, which is an excuse for them to watch, YouTube highlights all day. So we'll get it going. First, talk about some folks that are always the first overall pick. That is Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Andrade and Levine. Pete, hop in.
D, what's going on?
How we doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, it's a bummer about losing the power. Now I got these kids all day. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. They've already eaten about 40 snacks that they're not allowed to eat by their mom. They're already watching YouTube, which I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to watch.
Well, listen, I was just, we showed up to the studio today, and I was very excited to see Jack. Right, Jack was wearing the Warriors jersey, the Steph Curry jersey, and it's nice to see him making decisions of his own and not taking after his father and having to follow that Miami Heat organization. Tough times down there in South Beach. Yeah,
we'll see how the Warriors do with Jim Butler with a back injury. Who could have seen that one?
That was your guy, man. You said Jim was the guy. You said he could lead the Heat to a title.
I loved him.
Now you're backtracking, man.
He put some banners up in the arena, and now when he got old, we moved on. So yeah, it worked out that way.
I don't know, man. They got the Heat. The Heat have all sorts of banners up there, man. They got the Michael Jordan one. They got the Marino one. And I don't think many of them really count for much. But I don't know who that is. I only know Joel Anthony.
Oh, there you go. So a lot of news to get to. We'll talk about the draft and everything. Let's start with Nikar since that's the news of the day. So Nikar announced, or at least it was announced, that he is coming back to Miami. Receiver, I don't know, he's a redshirt freshman or sophomore, but second-year wide receiver who played sparingly last year, was a top 75 player in the country, entered his name in the portal after, he really showed a ton of flashes that we reported on heavily early on in his career. Then you get to the spring, this spring was banged up, trying to put on some weight. The freshman really came in strong. So he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, jumped in the portal, but he has now announced he's coming back to Miami. I am told it's not like Miami paid him more money or something like that to bring him back. It was not that situation. It was just he tested the market. He saw that, hey, Miami's my best opportunity. They do need receivers. They do need depth. Miami wasn't trying to get
push him out the door. We said this, yeah. This is what we said when he left. Not every situation is cut and dry with, we should have paid him more. With this situation, we said this is a guy who was banged up for a lot of camp and literally said 3-4 days ago, he probably did not feel like he was in the plans. And that's exactly kind of what we're hearing now, is he wanted to make sure he was, which is what Gabby reported. And now, you've also said the same thing. He wanted to feel like he had a role on this team. And, I'm excited to see him stay. I don't know if it's the answer, right? I still think they need to go get a guy, right? I don't think this, even if Carr had stayed before, they were still going to try to go get another receiver. So I don't think it solves anything, but it's nice to keep him in the fold.
Yeah, and again, just to repeat, Brand's asking, did we raise his money to stay? We did not raise his money to stay. So it's a situation where you saw Miami bring in receivers for depth on visits, and look, they still are taking a look at receivers that would potentially be depth wide receivers, not that impact number one. They're also looking for that as well. But that's just one of the factors here. It's not just getting that number one receiver. You also need enough numbers to play. with Chance Robinson being hurt, a lot of guys leaving, Nikar leaving. Now he's back. So your depth is better. Plus you have a young guy you can develop. You're still going to go after that number one. So just speaking broadly on receivers in the portal, Hurst from Georgia State is the name to keep an eye on. That's Ted Hurst, tall, 6'3", 185, athletic track kid from Savannah, Georgia. I think he's got like a 22.3 in the 200 meters, 22 plus long jumps. This is an athletic guy at 6'3", very explosive on the field, 17.2 yards per catch, 961 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns at the FBS level, but G5. So he's someone that Miami has interest in. I know Louisville's also in that mix. Trevor Pena, you heard about him visiting. So there's a lot of guys in the mix. But I think what you're going to see is depth and also trying to get that impact difference-making wide receiver with the upside to play in the NFL. So that's really what you're looking at a receiver. Nikar, we've talked about it before. His issue's really just been gaining weight, kind of just getting that body armor to deal with some of the hits he's going to be taking at the next level. He was banged up in spring. The freshman had an incredible spring. Josh Moore, Dalen Upshaw, of course, Malachi Toney. So I think that hurt him. JoJo Trader, who came in with him, made a huge leap. So he was kind of stuck in the mud there after really having a great initial spring when he got here as a true freshman and showing flashes after that. So he's someone with a lot of talent, good kid, and I never heard a bad word about the kid as I posted when he left. So I think Miami's happy to have him there, continue to develop him and see what happens there. But they're going to continue to recruit receivers. Receivers and safety are the top priority, both impact starters and depth. I'm told, just they're monitoring, a ton of guys at both positions. And then linebacker and defensive tackle, still monitoring guys. We're probably half of what they're monitoring at safety, at wide receiver. Running back, you heard about Shamar Brown, Marty Brown, the running back from North Dakota State. He had a great visit. Miami's in good position there, although other schools are going to have opportunities for him that they're going to sell. So we'll see where that goes. But Miami had a great visit with him and likes him a lot. That's the running back from North Dakota State. Tight end, I don't know. Offensive line, I don't know if those are going to be focuses going forward. I think it's really those positions, receiver and safety, number one by far. Then linebacker and D tackle. After that, I think they're going to try to bring in a kicker. You heard, Abram Murray transferred. Carter Davis, the kickoff specialist, is in the lead for the field goal position, but is inexperienced as a field goal kicker. I could see a real field goal kicker added. Mentioned the potential running back with Marty Brown. And I think that's pretty much what you're looking at here with the positions of need. So we got some questions here about Jackson Cantwell. Apparently, Jackson Cantwell got a Will Fong prediction to Georgia. I'm not sure Will Fong has the greatest feel for this one. Here's what I can tell you.
Cantwell has already responded to it, by the way.
He said he liked it a him or something.
Yeah, I don't really buy those responses. Sometimes always trying to throw people off the scent of something. But
like I said, with Cantwell, the biggest thing I've seen, first of all, Miami remains confident. They were confident. They remain confident. I talked to them after this Fong Bong, and the word was, we still feel very good about what we've done with Jackson Cantwell, where we're at with Jackson Cantwell. But we'll see, right? We'll see how this one goes. I feel after seeing Cantwell's interview with the Springfield paper, which is the beat writer that's known him since he was a little kid, he was talking like he was already committed. So beyond what I hear from Miami, beyond what I see from other sources, just me independently watching that interview and being around recruiting for a long time, it sure sounded like if he were to walk out that interview and sign, he was going to sign with Miami that day. We'll see. He's got to visit Oregon.
My only question to that, D, would be when was that interview done? Because I think if you asked this question, if that was done like a couple of weeks ago, I think we all felt pretty good about it. But I think what concerns people is the combination of pushing back the visit, setting up another Georgia visit, and then the prediction of Georgia. Now, Will Fong might be piggybacking off of the fact that he's getting that last Georgia visit in as the reason he's picking them, right, amongst other things. But I think that's where I would say, look, I agree with you. The interview did sound good, but I would like to know when the interview is done. Because if it was a couple weeks ago, I could see that coming off on, another recent visit to Miami. But I think that's the part of it that people are a little bit concerned with.
Yeah, the interview in Springfield, that was after he did the Oregon visit. He set that one up before the Georgia visit. But look, this guy, for him to jump on a plane and visit a school is nothing. He's visited a million schools. His parents are Olympians. They go on planes all the time, or they spend half their lives on planes. Like, I don't think him taking official visit or unofficial visits is the same as maybe other kids. He just kind of, he wants to make an informed decision. He's the number one player in the country. He's a really smart guy. He's got a unique family deal, and he can go anywhere and get the red carpet rolled out for him. So I wouldn't read too much into that. I think Miami's still looking good for Jackson Cantwell, but we'll see. Obviously, it's recruiting. He's going to visit these places, and we'll see where it all sits after that. But that's what I'm hearing on Cantwell, and then with Nikar. I think good news overall for the Canes that he's coming back, but it's more of a function of, seeing what's out there and seeing the Miami's best opportunity for him.
So
okay, I know you got some. Well, first of all, before we get to the draft stuff, listen, if you guys like having the number one overall pick of the draft, if you guys like being in the mix for the number one overall player in the country, canesconnection.com/CIS. It's very simple. There's only one way for you guys to help what's happening here. We talk about it all the time. We're on here every day. Obviously, very important to us. The only way to make an actual difference in what's going on is to sign up for canesconnection.com. And again, use that link /canesconnection.com/CIS. You get that /CIS in there. You end up getting access to private chats, information that I can't share on here, but I can share with supporters of the program, true insiders, which is what Canes Connection members are. So sign up at canesconnection.com/CIS.
So, D, I saw our boy Chuck, as always, appreciate the support, man. He says, hope more Canes get drafted than projected. I'll tell you this, man, based on my conversation this morning with someone I trust in the scouting community, I think on the lower end, 6 to 7 Canes get drafted. On the higher end, you got 9, D. So yeah, so
let's go through it. Go through it, because I want to go through
this. I'll go through. Obviously, we're expecting Cam to go first overall, and we'll get more into depth on that after this, D. But just kind of going through the list of guys. Based on what I was told this morning, this person told me that they'd be pretty surprised if Elijah Arroyo does not go first round. Now, the injury stuff we've said is something that could concern some teams, but if you're a defensive coordinator, Arroyo is the tight end in this draft that keeps you up at night the most with his explosive ability. So I would look for him to get drafted in the later part of that first round. Without the knee stuff, would be a surefire top 15, top 20 pick is what I was told today. So he has trended, even though he did not go through the process fully. As I said the other day, I in situations like this, there can be a feeling based on getting feedback that your client is in a certain spot. No need to throw him out there and do anything else, right? So I think it's more about that than a real injury concern from him not going through some of the stuff at Pro Day. But he's someone who not only has helped himself in the process, interviews and stuff like that, but as people dove into the tape more, realized that he's that sort of talent at tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To me, I've seen Loveland getting projected in the top 10. If I compare Loveland to Arroyo's more physically impressive from a size standpoint. He's tougher, more physical from an attitude standpoint. He's faster and more explosive. Maybe you give Loveland the edge on route polish and catching, but Arroyo's pretty polished as a receiver as well. So I think I've been saying since the beginning, I think he's the best tight end in the draft. I think if he stays healthy, when we go back and look at this draft, we'll say there were a lot of good ones. Arroyo's the best, but we'll see.
So after that is where you try to figure out who's going to be the next Cane off the board. It looks like Damian Martinez is someone who he's in that mix to be the next guy off the board. It's looking like fourth round, more or less, for him. He's been a riser in the process. And it's interesting with him, D. He's been a riser because people have gone back and watched his Oregon State tape, which from what I was told, the scheme there is more in terms of the run scheme. It's more like what he's going to see in the pros, more of a West Coast sort of pro style system. And he just looked a little more fluid over there running in that system. And it's going to be more similar to what he's going to do at the next level. The first few games, I think we all saw, it was an adjustment for him, kind of running out of the shotgun, right? So he's someone who has put himself in a good position here. So I'm thinking around 4th round for him. Kiko Malinoa has been a big riser in this process, 4th, 5th round range for him. So he's someone who tested really, really well. I don't know if he was necessarily used in the best of his skill set this year in the scheme. And he's a guy who helped himself the way he ran, without a doubt. If he doesn't run that time, then it doesn't match up with the notion that he's an athletic linebacker. So after that, you're looking at that 5th, 6th round range, Jalen Rivers and Restrepo. Restrepo is going to get drafted. He was too productive of a player at the level that he was. The testing stuff, without a doubt, did not help him, but he's going to get picked most likely in that 5th, 6th round range. Never out of the doubt that, out of the realm of possibility that someone is just so in love with him that they take him a little earlier than that. But the comps, historically are tough with how he tested. Excuse me. So Jalen Rivers, like I said, 5th, 6th round, probably as well. Athletically, not what you're looking for in terms of the high end, the quickness, the agility, the foot speed, really. But he's someone who's experienced, can play a few different positions across the line. But they're really looking at him as an interior lineman. They don't see him as much of a tackle at the next level at this point, but could be a valuable piece to a roster, I believe. Tyler Barron, 6th, 7th round range. His physicals are off the charts, as we've seen. The questions about the consistent production are there. The injury stuff will hold him back a little bit, but he should be a guy who gets picked because there's not too many guys walking around looking like that as edge rushers, right? And then Andy Borregales has a chance to get picked. He's top 2 or 3. Some teams have him as a top guy on their board. So, but the kicking stuff, it's such a crapshoot that you never know how it's going to shake out. He has a chance. Sam Brown, most teams have him as an undrafted sort of grade, but another one who tested so well that a team might pick him in the 7th round to avoid having to go through the priority free agent process of negotiating with him and trying to battle other teams. Zach Carpenter, most likely a priority free agent. I'm trying to think if I've missed anyone else.
Jacoby George. I was going to ask you after we got
Jacoby George. I didn't specifically ask about him this morning, but the last I had heard, it wasn't trending too well for him. He ran. I mean, he did not run well, and I think there was a notion that he was faster than that based on how he his play speed, his ability to get open and after catch stuff. So maybe late, but I don't know if he helped himself in the process.
Yeah, and he doesn't return. I think that's an issue with all these receivers is they don't return. Jordan Livingston saying Jalen Hurts to steal that low. He's so reliable. He'll be in the league for a while.
You've been banging that table for a while, D.
Yeah, I mean, I think people overthink offensive linemen sometimes, and then you go look at a guy that's big and smart like this, and they're in the league for 10 years. They didn't get drafted high because of some movement stuff that at the end of the day didn't matter. So we'll see how that one turns out. But I think Jalen Rivers will be in the league for 10 plus years. If he does, obviously that's going to be much more than a 5th round pick in terms of the players. So we'll see.
Porter Jr. and Barrow, most likely, as we get questions about them, most likely priority free agents. Barrow, I asked about him specifically because he didn't get an invite to any of these games, and it was just like any of the Senior Bowl or Shrine game, and that was all just because he wasn't the size that they're looking for. He tested really well, so he should get a legit look in a camp because I think he'll get in there and kind of surprise people with his what he can do in terms of his penetration and getting upfield. But it's got to be the right scheme for him.
Yeah, I think the size there. He's not for everybody, but I think in the right system he could get something done. I look at guys like Sanat that just kind of local guys that hung around for a while. I can see him like that if he lands in the right system. Now, look, Leonard Taylor, different type of profile totally, but he got undrafted. He ended up playing as a freshman or as a rookie for the Jets. So, that doesn't mean you can't play early. It doesn't mean you can't make the league. So we'll see. I think, like, if you're Miami, I would like to see us get 8 or more. I think that's a big number. I'm just looking at some of the top teams over the past 5 years. And if you're averaging 8 picks for 5 years, you're doing very, very well. You're one of the top teams in the country. I think Ohio State was like 36 over 5 years. Obviously, a lot of them on the high end of that. And they're gonna have a ton this year. But I'm saying, 8, if you can get 8 and you can sustain that pace, you're going to be in pretty good shape, particularly if you have, first overall type players, first rounders. Say, here you go. Here's the list. So over the last 5 years, you got Georgia with 49 picks, which is about that's 10. That's about 10 a year. That's crazy. 40 Alabama 46, Michigan 45, LSU 43, Ohio State 36, Penn State 33, Notre Dame 27, Clemson the highest ranked ACC team at 26, Florida at 25, OU and Texas tied at 24. So that's 5 years. So again, if you're at an 8 a year pace, you're right there in the mix of that. So I think 8's a good number. And obviously you want to keep that for next year.
Yeah. And hopefully, there's going to be a drop off after that first round, right? To where you get your next guy. You want to keep pushing the quality up that board. You want as many top 100 picks are normally the marker, at least for NFL. When you talk to NFL people, like, those are guys who are no one's can't miss, but you're drafting those guys and thinking like they're coming in and starting and being impact players most of the time. And if you can get top 100 picks in that range, you're where you want to be. I think 5, 6 of them would be ideal moving forward.
You got something to say, Eli? You're just hanging out? Got Bobby Witt jersey for his favorite baseball player. He said he was going to drop a top 10 baseball players in the league, but I don't know if he's getting shy or not. On the weekend, you're going to drop.
On the weekend.
Well, give me a. Who's number 3 behind Judge and or Ohtani and Judge? Bobby Witt. There we go. There's Jack. There's Jacko right here. They were asking about Jackson Cantwell in the car, so I told them I think Miami still got a good shot. But anyway, so
you want to talk a little bit about Ward and just,
real quick before we get to Ward, I want to get to that comment you said earlier about the scouts going back and looking at Oregon State's film for Martinez, and I think the reason why they were looking at that film is because you mentioned Miami's running game is a little muddy. If that's the perception in the league, I think part of that is because when you're dealing with the tight splits that we have, and let me take a step back. In the NFL, there's a lot of parity between offensive line and defensive line. So you could have a great offensive line or a great defensive line, but you're not going to overwhelm the other team in the NFL. Everybody has dudes, right? There's no one that just looks totally different up front. So your schemes are more about finding gaps, creating gaps, and just, you can't just sit there and overpower the other team. Mm-hmm. In college, you can when you have Malinois and Markel Bell and guys like that. So we line up with tight splits. We just basically mash the guy in front of us, and we allow double team blocks, dual blocks, and we allow our running backs to get upfield. The product of that is you never see us take a loss. Remember, we're the best third down team in the country by a mile. Some of that was Cam Ward, but Cam Ward was 50th with Washington State. A lot of that was because we were never in bad down and distance situations because we never took losses. We did limit our explosiveness a little bit, but we were top 5 in yards per carry nationally. So it didn't, hurt us from getting chunks. So that is something that might not translate to the NFL because you have so much parity between lines. But for a team like Miami that has a tremendous advantage on the offensive line, it makes sense and allows you to stay in front of the sticks. So when people hear, their scouts are going back and looking at Oregon State film for Martinez, look at it as a bad thing. Martinez was part of the number 1 offense in the country for us. And I think part of that was because of the way we played offense, the way we ran the ball, which is very low risk, making sure we're always headed down in distance and taking advantage of the fact that we can physically beat up the people in front of us in a way you can't do at the NFL level.
Yep. So Cam Ward.
Yeah, I mean, look, number 1 overall pick. We'll see when it's official, but obviously all signs point to that. I think it's going to be huge. There we go. Got a signed Cam Ward card by my son here. Obviously, huge Cam Ward fans.
Be careful. Canes Cat C305 is gonna ask him how much he wants for it.
That's right. You might have to sell it. He wants to. They're always checking the prices of all these cards. Oh, yeah, don't sell that one. Like and subscribe to this show, by the way. Appreciate you, Randall. Make sure you like and subscribe to this program. We're on every day. Peter, Kane Scouts. Peter,
I do have a thought, but I'm not gonna, ruin the celebration just yet. I have concerns, but I don't think right now is the right time to express them.
Well, look, a lot of this is fit. Tennessee's, they have the number 1 pick for a reason.
I'm very concerned about that. I just talking to people around the league. I don't know that people have much faith in the fact that, they've completely revamped their O-line, but like we saw what it was for him at Washington State when it was not a perfect situation. I'm saying it was the greatest situation in Miami in the world, but for what it was relative to the rest of the ACC, it was much better than, what he had at Washington State. And I think it'll be a similar situation for him in terms of what he's got. So he's got to adjust his play style, and we got to see it. So I'm concerned about what he's got around him and the situation he's falling into based on what he had previously relative to what he had this year. But he can't control that.
Well, look, Jaden Daniels, to use an example, Jaden Daniels at Arizona State, it was not a good situation. His stock was in the toilet. He came in as a 5-star, and then in a bad situation at Arizona State, he was worse than Cam was at all his other stops. I think that's pretty fair to say. Cam was a much hotter commodity in the portal than Jaden Daniels was. Jaden Daniels goes to a situation in LSU, which I think we'd all agree on offense was pretty outstanding. You had 2 elite NFL receivers to throw to, Neighbors and Thomas. I think both those guys are trending to be elite guys. Shout out to Adrian Lorenzo. Shout out to, by the way, me and Adrian, who those of you don't know, big Canes fan. He is a former MLB executive. Me and him have a show called El Big League Show, EL Big League Show on YouTube.
Look at this, D. I'm gonna pull up my history right here on YouTube. Look at the last thing I was watching here. Former exec.
There you go. Talking about the Yankees.
Yeah.
So we just dropped this. It's brand new. Check it out. Support the channel if you can. A Big League Show right there. Like and subscribe. If you're an MLB fan and you're listening to this show, it is some of the most, kind of inside baseball talk you could have from someone who won 2 World Series with the Red Sox and was with the Marlins as well, and knows all these guys, these GMs making these moves personally. He knows how they get down. He really takes you behind the curtain on some things in a way that you can't get on Sports Center or something like that when you're just kind of watching stuff. So L Big League Show, please check it out and support. There you go. So you got Canes Connection, signed Cam Ward jersey. Got it at the Canes Connection event. I don't know if we had an inside deal to get that one. I didn't tell anybody it was my son, but he ended up winning the award. So anyways, on Ward. Jaden Daniels, I thought, had a similar path in terms of bad situation, great situation, then bad situation in the NFL, and he made it work because he was a great player. So,
they made some moves. They made some nice moves. I worry about the retooled offensive line. That's to me, that's what it comes down to. Again, work out great. But that's obviously the concern with, and his style of play is a bit volatile, right? It's exciting, but that's my thing with it, is that I just hope that few games into the season, because he's going to be the starter. They're not going to sit him. Few games into the season, he has some of these moments that we've seen, right? Unfortunately, but we saw more of the good stuff because he wasn't getting touched. So if he can control that, then it's fine. But that's my one thing with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a process with him. Mahomes did something similar. Now Mahomes was able to sit a year, plus he was on a playoff team already. I think they're doing the right thing in Tennessee in building that offensive line, getting a guy like Dan Moore. They got J.C. Latham last year. So they're building the offensive line. It's not going to be an elite unit, but they're investing there. They'll be pretty good. And I think if I'm drafting for Tennessee, I'm saying forget defense. I'm doing everything I can to make Cam Ward successful. Tight end, maybe Arroyo if he's in the second round, which I don't think he will be. Restrepo later on. Obviously, you know, have to just get Canes. There's a ton of running backs, ton of tight ends in this class, but build around Ward, because if Ward is a good quarterback and has success and is confident, knows he can play in the league, you could build the defense later. The name of the game is quarterback. Their first priority, in my opinion, should be doing everything they can to make Cam Ward a established, confident NFL quarterback. Cena Vale, is any chance we get Pena and the BYU receiver? Appreciate your support. Yes, definitely. There's definitely a shot for both. Miami's casting a wide net, a wide receiver. I'm told there's like 10 guys on the radar. So they're working it. The needs are both impact, top of the line guy, and depth.
We're getting a lot of Hakeem Williams comments here. Is that a thing?
It was reported. Somebody reported he'll be here next week. Again, we're casting a wide net, a wide receiver. He'd fall more into the depth category. He's not obviously going to step in and be wide receiver one, but I know Miami recruited him hard out of high school.
You know what that signing would remind me of, D? That would remind me of Frank Ladson coming back to Miami a couple years ago.
Great comp, who caught a huge onside kick. I forgot what game it was.
Yeah, but you know, you take a chance on the physical ability. You're not expecting them to be Randy Moss reincarnated, and you know, if they're willing to come in and try to prove themselves, like if they have the right expectations, I'm with it. If they're thinking they're coming in here to be a certain guy, then you know he can earn it. But I think that's where that one should fall into.
Yeah. I agree with you. I can't emphasize this enough. College free agency, guys. So when you see things happen, see things kind of be fluid, see different factors at play. Remember, like, why is Miami not after this guy? Or why was Miami not after him initially and now they're after him now? Right? This is all about college free agency. There's agents involved. There's money involved. There's other players involved. So it's a balancing act, and it's hard to just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. There's a little bit of planning, but there's a lot of reacting too. Recruiting is more planning. I would say portal is more reacting because you don't know who's jumping in. The time crunch is there, and then the money, the agents. It's a interesting process. So that's what I would say on all this. But I would say just in terms of priority, receiver and safety by far number one. They want to get multiple guys there if they can. And then linebacker, D-tackle, running back, and kicker as well. Field goal kicker, not necessarily the kickoff.
If you're just joining the show now, because we're getting a question here about Nikar, we did a 5-minute or so kind of discussion about it in the beginning of the show, so you can check back, you can rewind to the beginning of the show and see our discussion on that if you're just joining.
Yep. So Pete, talk to us about this new basketball commit.
Yeah, Marcus Allen. So this is someone that we've talked about for a few weeks on the show. Has been mentioned for a while in terms of his connections to Miami. Obviously, being a guy from Norland, he spent a year or so out in Phoenix playing at a big program out there as well. But this was a guy that Charlton Young had brought over to Missouri. And you look at his numbers last year, not spectacular, right? I'm already seeing a bunch of comments. I saw a bunch of comments yesterday, like, why should we be excited about this guy? Number one, former, big recruit, right? Top 70 type player in the country. So not that means anything for right now, but was a guy that, based on what I was talking to some people at Miami, at Missouri, was playing a lot more in the beginning part of the year as they got into the heart of SEC schedule, trusted some guys with some more experience there. What you're getting with him is huge upside on the defense. I mean, already a really good defender, length, physicality, and Miami thinks there's a lot more in terms of development offensively for him, right? So his numbers were not great. Again, like I said, average like 2.5 points a game, 2 rebounds, something like that. But when you watch him play, and let me see if I don't think I can play any of this stuff actually, but he's going to play an important role on this team, right? You have 8 players on this team now on this roster. The 7 guys you had already brought in are all expecting to play. Allen's expecting to play and will play. I see this team, based on what I've been told, going 8 or 9 deep, right? So you saw Chris Bell go to Syracuse, or from Syracuse, end up at Cal. the other day or yesterday. That was one that I think the last couple of days, as Miami's picked up some more pieces here, and then now bringing in a Caden Lewis this weekend as a top 30 player in the country high school recruit, putting looks like some energy and resources into him there. So you pick up an Caden Lewis as your 9th player on this roster. Like I said, I'd see this being an 8 or 9 deep team. These last few pieces you bring in, potentially developmental guys, players that, maybe understand they're not going to be primary figures on the team this season. But what you've brought in right now with another piece or two potentially is what I would expect to be the team, unless, of course, what we've talked about before, the thing that's kind of been out there already, the boozers who are signed to Duke. If that somehow came to fruition, then who knows what would happen. That might change some things up. But that's what we're looking at right now. With Miami, again, a Caden Lewis coming in this weekend, former Kentucky commit. So that'll be an interesting one. Big time scorer. He's a point guard, but he's 6'2", so he's really a guy he's a shooter, guy who can get his bucket when he wants it. But I don't know if he's someone who's going to go in and run the show right away. I think it would be a great piece as a scorer off the bench, and maybe the next year potentially be in line to be a starter.
So you're seeing my kids come and show off their autographs. I was all at the Canes Connection exclusive event. Me and Peter were there. So again, if you wanted that kind of exclusive access, canesconnection.com/CIS.
And then real quick, I was going to say basketball wise, of course, everything brought to you, all of the basketball coverage brought to you by Aries Law. Check out AriesLawPA.com. Schedule your free consultation for very important stuff here: wills, trusts, probate. People don't really like to talk about this, but you got to plan your future so others don't. Again, schedule a free consultation, AriesLawPA.com. Yep.
And so on Allen, I think you're seeing a trend. We've said this for other guys, so it just continues here.
Defense, man.
Defense, big bodies, and then I would say highly recruited guys. So, right, Renault, Uday, obviously Allen and Henderson. And then both Allens, because you had Dante Allen and Marcus Allen. So all of them, I believe, are top 100 players. All right on that, Pete?
Yeah.
Out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing highly rated players out of high school, strong bodies, defensive-minded players. Renaud probably more of an offensive-minded player, but he'll try on defense. But everybody else defensive-oriented. And then Donaldson and True Washington, maybe not as touted out of high school, but big name transfers, and both guys, I think, with that physical toughness that you want.
So Allen was on 247 coming out, was the number 67 player in the country, was rated as a power forward, number 12 power forward in the country, was a 97 rated on the composite for 247. So, I mean, these are high level prospects. It didn't quite work out for him in year one at Mizzou, but this is a nice upside piece to grab right here.
Yeah, I like the size, I like the athleticism, I like the defense, and he needs to look a certain way. You said that, Pete, when you started talking to some of your inside sources before these guys came on board, before Henderson, before Allen.
It sounded a lot like what Mario was saying when he first got here.
And what was that?
Yeah. You gotta get bigger, and you gotta get stronger and tougher. And we talked about the trenches when Mario came in, but just the overall size and strength of this team. I saw Trey Donaldson yesterday, for a bit, and he looks like a football player. The way that he's built, I mean, he's not tiny, right? So he's not the tallest guard in the world, but in terms of like defensively and being able to take physicality and also deliver physicality, getting to the hoop. He's not going to be deterred. I think there were too many guys that were too deterred by, a forearm, a little shove here and there. And it just, the ones that aren't called as fouls, right? They weren't kind of playing through that toughness the other team would provide to them, or that physicality. And I think you're getting guys who will take the first punch and deliver right back at them. So that's a sort of team that you're building here. It's weird. You only have one guy really around right now, which is Trey Donaldson, who he just posted again. He's there every day working out in the facility. So it's going to be exciting to get the rest of the team here and start to see how guys are progressing. But of course, we'll have you covered here at Canes Insight.
That's it, man. So Pete, pull up Miami Hurricane team stores. I want to talk about these hats, 30% off. As you get ready for basketball season, baseball, getting some comments on baseball from Canes Cat. Obviously, a tough loss yesterday at FIU in extra innings. What bothers me is this kills the season series to FIU 2-3. So disappointing loss, to say the least, after a ton of great wins. A lot of pressure on Miami to turn around here this weekend at Boston College, Fenway Park, making sure they can try to win that series against the Boston College team that's not playing that bad at all. So that's a huge series. But listen, you want to rock Miami Hurricanes basketball gear, baseball gear, rock the hat, MiamiHTS.com. There you got the headwear right there. 30% off. And if you use your promo code INSIGHT20 on any item, not just the hats, you get 20% off your first item. You can use that in the store. You could use that in person. INSIGHT20 for 20% off. There's Restrepo there. Hopefully he's wearing a NFL cap here by the end of this weekend, not just the UM cat.
We're getting beat up in a group chat of our buddies right now, D.
What are they saying?
Got a text that said Pete compared Hakeem to Frank Ladson, and D Money said Ladson got a huge onside kick for us. Unbelievable.
He did.
Next text said,
he did.
This is good content, man. This is good content on a Thursday morning, man.
I wouldn't say he was outstanding. But
I'm not saying they're the same player, but like former big recruit who didn't work out at the previous stop. There were ties to Miami, and you bring him in not expecting him to be your number 1 or 2 or 3 receiver, but if he can like find something for the reason he was rated highly previously and provide some depth, then why not?
Yep, I'm with you. Also at FIU, okay, so we have one more game against FIU to maybe tie the season series. You got to split. So thank you, Kane Scott. Cesar Iglesias asking, with Nikar back, they're going after another wide receiver? Yes. Priority remains huge on wide receivers and safeties. They're
guys, if you're just joining the show now, we had a big discussion on it in depth. So at the beginning of the show. So as soon as we finish here, the full show will be available here and on audio as always.
Yeah, man. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the draft again. I always love it. Great chance to kind of evaluate and see trends and where this program needs to be, crunch numbers. We'll do all of that stuff. And I'll be in Japan next week, but we'll figure out a way to get these shows off. Pete's going to be on trip as well, because it's like the slow period of football, but we're still going to be putting out shows every day, one way or the other. So we'll catch you guys live. I might be at 3 a.m., with some salmon flying in the background, but we'll be there.
A1 at Cali Kane. We just spoke about Hakeem Williams as well. So just rewind about 15 minutes or so and you'll find it.
Yeah, look, if he comes in, it'll be depth piece, developmental talent. They still want a number 1 receiver.
All right, everyone. Appreciate you all for watching us today. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.